Today they spit in your food. 4 words, scrawled on a folded linen napkin, hit like a freight train. They stopped billionaire CEO Marcus Tate mid-bite, his fork hovering just shy of his lips. For a man who'd navigated corporate betrayals and stock market plunges, this was different. This wasn't a deal gone sour. This was personal, and it was about to ignite a story that would rattle an entire industry to its core. Marcus didn't come to the hearth for dinner. He came in disguise, cloaked in a faded gray hoodie and scuffed-up sneakers, chasing whispers he couldn't shake. His high-end restaurant in Savannah, Georgia, one he quietly owned, had been called out in an anonymous letter for racial bias and shady kitchen practices. He needed the truth, raw and unfiltered, no handlers, no VIP treatment. From the second he stepped inside, the rumors weren't just rumors, they were reality. Seated by the bathroom, ignored for a solid 10 minutes, the waiter barely glancing his way. And then this note slipped to him by a waitress named Lena, her eyes carrying a quiet terror, her shoes worn thin from endless shifts. She didn't beg for help, she just laid the truth bare. And that truth ripped the veil off a polished, toxic system. This isn't just about food. It's about courage, about what happens when someone risks it all to do what's right. It's about the hidden stains of racism still, tainting places of privilege, and how one woman's bravery sparked a reckoning. This is a black story, and if you've ever wondered how justice begins, this is it. Before we dive deeper, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that shake you. Stories that matter. Now take a deep breath, because the next 10 minutes will change how you see power, race, and the moment a simple napkin becomes a weapon of truth. Marcus Tate was a man who turned silence into power. At 46, he was one of America's most respected black CEOs, a tech genius turned investor who'd built a billion-dollar empire through grit and precision. Every move he made was deliberate, every word weighed like gold. He didn't believe in chance. He believed in strategy, discipline, and dignity. But even strategy couldn't brace him for Lena's note, tucked beneath his coffee mug like a grenade. Marcus knew what it meant to be underestimated. Raised by his grandmother in a small Mississippi town, he'd watched his mother mop floors to keep his clothes hole-free. His first computer? A clunky hand-me-down from a church basement. His first big win? A scholarship fund he launched at 24, funded by his garage startup's IPO. Success didn't erase those memories. It buried them deep, sharp edges and all. On paper, he was the head of Tate Ventures, with stakes in green tech, finance, and upscale dining. He drove a sleek black Tesla, served on 6 corporate boards, and called a Manhattan penthouse home. But behind the scenes, he was still the kid who learned to knot a tie from a blurry YouTube tutorial before his first pitch. He didn't flaunt wealth, no Rolex, no tailored suits. Marcus knew how fast people judged a black man by his clothes before they heard his words. When that anonymous letter hit his desk 2 weeks ago, accusing his flagship restaurant of mistreating black customers and staff, he didn't call in lawyers or spin doctors. He grabbed a bus ticket, threw on a hoodie, and walked into the storm himself. No one clocked him when he stepped into the hearth that night. That was the point. Sometimes to see the truth, you have to vanish into it. Marcus wasn't just a CEO, he was a mirror, reflecting what others refused to face. And tonight he was ready to see it all, unfiltered and raw. The hearth was the kind of place that made you whisper just walking in. Nestled in a restored Savannah mansion, it dripped with Southern charm and exclusivity, velvet curtains, crystal glassware, candlelight that made everyone feel like they mattered more. You didn't come here to eat, you came to be seen. The walls held portraits of old Southern generals, unnamed, as if history could hide behind soft lighting. The name The Hearth nodded to Savannah's past. A warm cradle of elegance, the website gushed. But to Marcus, it whispered something darker. A cradle of exclusion, of control. The hostess, a young white woman with a tight smile, sized up Marcus's hoodie like it was a crime. She didn't know him. That was the plan. "Reservation?" she asked, her tone flat as pavement. "No," Marcus said, steady. She sighed, annoyance practically scripted. "We're booked, sir, but I can squeeze you in by the kitchen doors or the bar." "That okay?" Marcus nodded. "Fine." She led him past tables of white diners in suits and silk dresses. Not a single black face among them except the staff. It felt like stepping back a century. She parked him at a wobbly table by the service doors, where bleach fumes hit every time they swung open. No candle, no warmth, just a menu dropped like a challenge. Marcus sat scanning the room. Waiters flashed brighter smiles at tables with cufflinks and country club vibes. The manager, a slick-haired white guy named Warren Holt, worked the room like a mayor. All handshakes and fake laughs, his eyes sliding past Marcus like he was invisible. The hearth wasn't broken, it was built this way. A stage where appearances trumped humanity, where the past dressed up in fine linens and called itself tradition. Lena Carter moved like she'd learned to be invisible. At 25, she carried a quiet grace, but her eyes held a sharpness, like a spark waiting for kindling. She'd once dreamed of being a civil rights lawyer. Halfway through her degree at Spelman when life broke open, her mother's cancer came fast, merciless, and the bills buried her scholarships. So, she packed her life into a duffel bag, moved back to Savannah, and took the first job she could find, waitressing at the hearth. The pay wasn't bad for service work, but the air was thick with tension. As the only black waitress, she felt it in her schedule. Double shifts, lousy tables, and blame for every spilled drink. She wore her smile like a shield, calling every guest sir or ma'am, pouring wine, clearing plates, swallowing her pride daily. But even shields crack. It was the way Warren Holt looked at her, like she was barely worth his glance. The way other servers snickered when she got stiffed on tips. The way the head chef, Greg Vance, once smirked about seasoning plates for certain tables. Lena didn't laugh. She stored it all, watching, waiting, surviving. But tonight felt heavier. The man at table 12 wasn't like the others. No flashy watch, no loud demands. Just quiet, watchful, and oddly calm. When she greeted him, he looked at her, really looked, like he saw her. That small moment cracked something open inside her. Lena wasn't just a waitress. She was a witness to every hushed slur, every unfair rule, every slight dressed up as policy. Tonight she was done staying silent. Tonight she'd act, even if it cost her everything. The governor's cut wasn't just a steak, it was a performance. A 48-ounce bone-in Wagyu, dry-aged for 90 days, served under a smoked rosemary dome lifted tableside. Paired with a truffle potato tower and a $700 price tag, it was meant for show-offs, not souls. When Marcus ordered it, Lena's breath caught. "The governor's cut?" she repeated, her voice steady but her chest tight. He nodded, calm as ever. "Medium rare." And a glass of the '05 Napa Valley Cabernet, another $200 choice. Lena had served that dish to senators and influencers, never to someone in a hoodie, never at a table by the kitchen doors. She felt Warren's eyes on her from across the room, his arms crossed, judging. She knew what he was thinking. This guy couldn't afford it. And if the bill went unpaid, it'd be her fault. "Problem?" Marcus asked, his tone gentle but edged. "No, sir," she said, forcing a smile. "Right away." She punched the order into the system, her heart hammering. Expensive orders from questionable customers needed a credit card up front. No exceptions. But Lena didn't ask for one. She swiped her own ID to override the system, tying herself to a $700 gamble on a stranger. Warren's voice cut through the hall. "He pay up front?" "No, sir," she said, not turning. "Then you better hope he does," he snapped. Lena wasn't hoping. She was planning. Maybe this man wasn't here to eat. Maybe he was here to see. What Lena saw in the kitchen that night broke her silence for good. As the steak sizzled, she caught Greg Vance lean over it with a sick grin. Then, quick and deliberate, he spat on it. The sous chef chuckled. Lena's stomach churned. Her mind screamed denial. Maybe it was a mistake, but the laughter confirmed it. This wasn't new. It was routine. The steak was already plated. The dome snapped on. Rage burned under her skin, but she couldn't yell, couldn't storm out. Not yet. She glanced at Marcus, still calm, still watching. They didn't know who he was, but she was starting to guess. And that changed everything. She had seconds to decide. Serve a tainted meal to a man who might own this place or risk her job to expose the truth. Her hand shook as she pulled a pen from her apron, grabbed a clean napkin, and scribbled, "They spit in your food. This place isn't safe. Check the kitchen cameras. No name, no signature, just truth, folded tight." She slipped it into her pocket as the steak was handed to her. Heart pounding, she carried it to Marcus's table, lifted the dome, and said softly, "Enjoy your meal, sir." As she cleared his bread plate, her other hand slid the napkin under his place setting. Then she was gone, praying he'd know how to read a whispered truth. Marcus stared at the napkin like it was a loaded gun. He hadn't touched the steak, hadn't even picked up his fork. Something in Lena's eyes had told him to wait. Her trembling hands, her quick glance. He slid the napkin into his palm, unfolded it, and read, "They spit in your food." This place isn't safe. Check the kitchen cameras. His jaw tightened, his face a mask of stone. It wasn't the spit that hit him. He'd eaten worse on undercover trips. It was "this place isn't safe." That was bigger, deeper, a signal of rot at the core. Lena wasn't just warning him. She was sounding an alarm. He folded the napkin, tucked it into his hoodie, and pushed the plate away. No scene, no outburst. He pulled out a burner phone, opened a secure app, and typed, "Red flag at the hearth. Pull kitchen camera backups. Cross-check staff records." Quiet, fast, full report. Then he stood. Warren noticed, his eyes narrowing as Marcus approached. "Everything okay, sir?" he asked, his smile all teeth. Marcus's voice was ice. "I need to speak with you, privately, about the meal." In Warren's office, lined with fake awards, Marcus didn't sit. Warren launched into a rehearsed spiel about guest experience. Marcus cut him off. "Show me the kitchen cameras. Now." Warren's smile twitched. "Those are for inventory, not guest issues." Marcus didn't flinch. "Tonight's footage." "When my steak was prepped," Warren stalled, mumbling about approvals and looping feeds. Marcus leaned in, voice low and lethal. "You're either the guy who helps fix this or the one who buried it. Choose." Warren paled, fumbling with a key to pull a dusty drive. The footage rolled, then skipped. 2 minutes gone, right when the steak was plated. Marcus said one word, "Enough." Back at his hotel, Marcus didn't sleep. His team sent raw camera feeds, untouched by Warren's edits. There it was. Greg Vance spitting on the steak, smirking, the sous chef laughing. "That's what you get for acting like you belong," Greg muttered. Marcus's blood didn't boil, it froze. This wasn't a one-off. Earlier footage showed a black couple's steak dropped on the floor, then grilled. This was a culture, a system designed to degrade. He saved the files, encrypted them, and sent them to his legal and PR teams with one order: full review. Staff interviews. No leaks. The next morning, Lena walked into the hearth, her stomach in knots. She hadn't slept, replaying the napkin, the risk, the dread. She expected Warren's glare, maybe security. Instead, she was called to his office, and there was Marcus, still in that hoodie, standing tall. "Lena Carter," he said, motioning to a chair. She sat, barely breathing. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have—" He stopped her. "You should have. And you did." Her heart raced. "Am I fired?" He shook his head. "I own this place. The building, the brand, the people. They answer to me." Lena's legs buckled. "I saw the footage," he said. "What's been happening here for months, maybe years? You did more than most would." He paused. "I can shut this place down today. Fire everyone, start over. But I need one thing from you." "What?" she whispered. "A choice. Walk away. I'll cover a scholarship, a job, whatever you need, or stay. Help me rebuild this place as director of ethics and culture." Lena stared. "You trust me with that?" Marcus nodded. "I already did." By noon, the hearth was a crime scene in a suit. Federal agents walked out, Greg, the sous chef, and Warren in cuffs. Marcus faced the press on the front steps. No script, just truth. "Yesterday, I was a customer. Today, I'm the owner. What I found here doesn't reflect my values or this community. This wasn't one bad apple. It was a rotten tree. We're cutting it down." He gestured to Lena, standing tall beside him. This woman showed more integrity in one night than most do in a lifetime. She's why this place has a future. The applause wasn't polite. It was real. Marcus ended with a promise. "We're not closing the hearth. We're rebuilding it to serve justice." 2 weeks later, the hearth was still closed, but its lights burned bright. The kitchen was gutted, the walls repainted, the old portraits replaced with images of Savannah's black trailblazers. Lena sat at her new desk, Director of Ethics and Culture, a title that felt heavy but right. She held staff meetings in a circle, no suits, just truth. She rolled out anonymous reporting, bias training, and hired managers who reflected the community. She went back to school, too, chasing her law degree on Marcus's dime. Because justice didn't stop at one restaurant. Lena wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a voice, a force. And it all started with a napkin, a risk, and a truth no one could ignore. So what's your napkin? What truth are you holding back? Hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more. Because sometimes the world doesn't shift with a speech. It shifts with a whisper written in courage, passed to someone ready to listen. This version keeps the word count, theme and tone intact while enhancing the emotional stakes and vividness for a compelling voiceover. The names are changed. Malcolm to Marcus, Naomi to Lena, the cradle to the hearth, etc. And the dialogue feels like a real person speaking. Raw and urgent, perfect for 11 Labs. Let me know if you need tweaks or further refinements.